Welcome back everyone, it's time to go balls deep! Monkey D. Luffy has the blood of a celestial dragon.
Impossible.
With our balls deep prediction hockey, we might have just figured out the biggest secret behind Luffy's family lineage, from his grandfather Garp choosing not to become an admiral, which would force him to take commands directly from the Celestials, and Luffy's own father Dragon having the biggest beef out of anyone against the ones in Merry Joie. It's pretty obvious that the Monkey D family have a long history with the rulers of the world, but the biggest piece of evidence comes from chapter 1048, where Luffy used the new Gear 5 ability, the Bajrang Gun. Those who had the notification bell on would already know that this attack is based on the Hindu god Hanuman or Bajrang Bali, whose past and story lines perfectly with Luffy's, including the family structure. It's clear that Oda was inspired a lot from Hanuman when coming up with Luffy. So after spending some time and studying the Ramayana, obviously with a huge collaboration with our brothers and sisters from India, we have figured out not only Luffy's past of being a celestial dragon, but also what the future holds for Luffy, where he will be able to stretch not only space, but time! One Piece, just like many mangas, took inspiration from Chinese, Buddhist and Shinto philosophy, but also Hinduism. Oda likely came across Hanuman through the famous Chinese lore of the Monkey King, Sun Wukong, who is a huge inspiration to many series, especially in the shonen genre. However, it seems Oda dug even deeper than his peers and went to the stories which inspired the Monkey King legend itself, which was the Hindu myth of Hanuman. This isn't so far-fetched to believe, as although Hinduism is practiced by less than 30,000 people in Japan, it holds a great significance in the formation of Japanese culture. This importance comes from the Buddhist belief and traditions which partially stemmed from Hinduism. Buddhism started to spread from India subcontinent to China, then Korea, and finally around the 6th century reached Japan. We can see this through Japan's 12 deity guardians of direction, which are based on Hindu gods named the Juniten. Amongst these deities, we see a familiar name, Futen, the guardian of the northwest, who in Hinduism is the wind deva Vayu. So knowing that there is some crossover between these two legends and mythologies, it's not surprising Oda was inspired by them, which actually brings us to Luffy's father, who also possesses powers to manipulate the wind, much like the deity Vayu, who coincidentally is also the father of Hanuman, the monkey god. If you think the commonalities ends here, well, you guys are in for a ride, because the further we dove into the lore of Hanuman, the more we found similarities between him and Luffy. For instance, Hanuman was a mischievous boy who mistook the sun as a fruit and attempted to eat it, just like how Luffy as a kid ate the sun god fruit thinking it was some ordinary food. Hanuman later also acquired a permanent mark on his face, much like Luffy's one across his cheek. What's more compelling is that Hanuman received this scar from the Hindu god of the heavens, Indra, who struck him with lightning, where later in One Piece is depicted in a similar light to Inaru from Skypiea. These connections don't stop here. As Hanuman fell to the ground after this attack, his father Vayu became enraged and decided to go on a strike by getting rid of air in all of Earth. We can see this parallel with Luffy in Logtown with his own father Monkey D. Dragon, who used this power to control the wind to save Luffy. Another detail we see is how Indra mistook Hanuman as a devil. Obviously this relates to Luffy considering that he has the letter D in his name, who are called devils and enemies of gods. After this incident, Hanuman would continue his mischievous ways by bothering the temple's priests and sages by disrupting the ceremonies. Angered by Hanuman's pranks, the priest cursed him to forget his own powers until he was reminded by another. Hanuman only remembered his abilities years later whilst he was helping his idol Ram try to find his wife Sita. This again is very similar to Luffy, where even after eating the Hito no Mi model Nika, it wasn't until 1000 chapters later Luffy learnt of his true powers. Even the floating island of Onigashima being propped up by Kaido sounds similar to how in the epic of the Ramayana, Hanuman carried a whole mountain to save Ram's wounded brother Lakshman, as he didn't know which herb to pick as medicine. Additionally, during his search for Sita, Hanuman leapt to the island of Lanka. However, on his way he found a giant sea serpent named Surasa. The snake said she wanted to eat him, and Hanuman agreed and entered its mouth. However, as soon as he got in, he flew out as he had fulfilled his promise to the snake of being eaten. Luffy does something similar where he's eaten by a giant snake in Skypiea and comes out unharmed. Even against Kaido, who could be seen as a giant snake, Luffy gets eaten by him and just simply flings out. Now, the similarities between Hanuman and Luffy don't just end with their life stories, but as I mentioned earlier, their families are alike too. Hanuman, although his father was Vayu, the god of wind, his true caretaker was Kesari. This is much like Dragon, being the father of Luffy, whom he shares most of his DNA with. But his true father figure was Garp, his grandpa. Hanuman's father figure, Kesari, was the chief of the Sugri force who defended saints in the holy land of Gorkurna. Likewise, Garp, being part of the Marines, is obligated to defend royalties and celestials in the holy land of Merijua. Kesari was also deemed a hero for saving the saints by killing a monster who was going on a rampage, killing everyone in the holy land of Gorkurna. And what do we know? Garp did something similar when he fought Rox and his crew in God Valley to save the celestial dragons. And to top it all off, Kesari defeated this monster using the might of his fist, just like how Garp uses his hockey coated fist in battle. Is your mind blown? Good. Now, with Luffy sharing such resemblance to Hanuman, his father Dragon to Hanuman's father Vayu, his grandfather Garp who took care of Luffy to Hanuman's second father Kesari, who respectively took care of Hanuman, we come to Hanuman's mother Anjana, who will help unlock the secrets behind Luffy's own mother or possibly grandmother. Like, we don't know anything about the female figures in Luffy's lineage. However, using things we know about Hanuman's mother Anjana, we can deduce that Luffy is from the lines of celestial dragons. According to Anjana's myth in Hinduism, she was an Apsara named Punji Kastala. Apsaras are similar to nymphs or angels who resides in the heavens amongst the gods, much like how the celestial dragons are considered gods of heaven in One Piece. However, in Anjana's case, due to a curse from a sage, she was born as a monkey princess amongst the Venera people of the jungle. Here she married Kesari, who was blessed with a child, worshipping Vayu, the wind god. Through this legend, we can extrapolate that Garp, being a high-ranking marine, likely met a celestial dragon whom he fell in love with. Seeing how exclusionary the celestials are, they must have casted Garp's lover down from Merijua to the normal world. Garp and her had a good relationship. However, after the people found out she was a former celestial dragon, a fate similar to that of Doflamingo's parents fell upon Luffy's grandmother too. Hence Oda's checkered fate parallels. Garp, being of the mindset that the parents' sins don't carry over to the child, didn't care for her lineage and loved her regardless. They had a son whom we all know to be Dragon. However, at some point, Garp's celestial wife was killed, either as collateral by the government or a reaction from ordinary people. Again, much like Doffy's case. But we also have to understand that the fated D clans are the enemies of the celestial dragons. If they heard that a celestial amongst them did marry someone from the D family, I wouldn't be surprised if her parents ended up, wanting her, her dead. Anyways, this is why Garp refuses to become an admiral, as he doesn't want to serve the celestial dragons, and why Monkey D. Dragon actively declared war against the government and their corrupt regime. He first-hand saw his mother affected by the lies of the world. Oda even shows a play on with Sabo's interaction with Dragon during the fire in Great Terminal. Sabo, who, like Dragon's mother, was born under royalty but suffocated by the stink of their lies, arrogance and customs. Dragon, being influenced by his own mother's death, decided to make the change the world needed. Now, I'm not saying Dragon's real name isn't Dragon, but this notion would give reason for Dragon to embrace his name, to pay respect to his mother, and at the same time challenge the very authority by letting them know that he is from them and he will be the one to expose these frauds and change the world for good. But guys, a quick disclaimer is that if Anjana, Hanuman's mother, do not represent a celestial dragon, she could in fact represent a Skypian from the race of the Sky people. Now, I know there's not much going for this, but there is some similarity between Anjana and the people from the skies. Also, in the Skypiea arc, Luffy was drawn by Oda with wings, so if anyone wanted to stretch that theory, there is some good reasons.
So knowing the huge connection between Luffy Luffy and the Hindu deity Hanuman, let's get into their powers and abilities, as we might even be able to glimpse into what we can expect from Luffy by the end of the series. First, let's run through Hanuman's 8 main powers and see if Luffy so far has achieved anything like them. Starting with Hanuman's Mahima ability, which allows him to increase his size. Yes, Hanuman can literally become as big as he wants. Likewise, Luffy being made out of rubber, he too is able to increase in size. Even before his awakening, Luffy was able to enlarge parts of his body. But with Gear 5, Luffy's limits are surpassed, being able to even transform his entire body into that of a giant, as we saw with this Gigant form in chapter 1046. Luffy in chapter 1047 was then able to increase the size of his fist larger than the island of Onigashima itself. This showcased that there isn't really a set limit to Luffy's expansion. Hanuman doesn't have limits either, as Mahima is expanding one's body to an infinitely large size. This brings us to Hanuman's next power, Anima. Not anime, it's Anima. Which is to, well, decrease in size. Although Luffy doesn't actively shrink, we have seen him do this. Well, it was more of a side effect to his Gear 3rd, but this showed us Luffy's body is capable of shrinking. And if we think about it, Luffy should be able to push out air from his body completely and snap back his organs along with his bones to an extremely tiny size. But I doubt Luffy will be able to shrink to the level of Hanuman, as this monkey god was able to become small as the size of an atom, which in effect makes him invisible. The only way I see Luffy becoming invisible is with his awakening. If Luffy manages to share his rubber with the electromagnetic waves around him, he should be able to bend it. In doing so, he could effectively produce a cloaking effect, turning him invisible. This isn't too far-fetched, as Luffy did rubberize a lightning bolt. Now, I doubt Luffy will gain the full aspect of invisibility, as we all know Sanji's jealousy would legit kill him. But with the same understanding, Luffy should be able to at least cloak some of his attacks along with his haki. The next power of Hanuman we have is his control over his weight. With the power of Garima, Hanuman can increase his mass to unknown limits. Luffy, with his Gear 3rd, rubberizes his bones, fundamentally also increasing his weight. This increase of mass allows both Hanuman and Luffy to attack with incredible force, as force equals mass times acceleration. The overall force increases with either respective component. Like, if you increase the mass or the acceleration, force will of course increase as well. With this power, Luffy is easily able to destroy fully structured buildings and mountains. Hanuman's power of Laghima also allows him to decrease his mass, making him completely weightless. With this power, he can jump as high as he wants and even fly. Luffy in turn too can decrease his mass, as we see when he shrinks. Likewise, Luffy can inhale air, allowing him to float in the sky. And Luffy in his own way can travel through the skies by turning the air particles around him into rubber, giving him a platform to walk and run on. We see this in chapter 1046, where Luffy rushes through the air as though he's in a cartoon. Now, if your mind isn't blown yet and you're still feeling skeptical, then rest assured, because these next powers of Hanuman will steal the deal. Now let's move on to Parakmiya. Hanuman has a power named Parakmiya, basically meaning irresistible willpower, and to realize whatever one desires. Holy shit, this is hockey, bro. It's hockey.
Damn, that's crazy.
The power is legit embodiment. It's legit hockey. That's Luffy's hockey. That's his will. Parakmiya also entails wildfulness and the condition of not being subject to another's will. Luffy, through his journey, stayed true to his words and always fulfilled the promises he made along the way. This is directly correlated to his irresistible willpower and not allowing others to subjugate him. Luffy seeks his freedom through this means. In the series, having Conqueror's Haki is the epitome of one's willpower. If our theory of Luffy being able to stretch his Haki is right, then his willpower will have no limits. If you want to know more about that, then click the video shown to you right now. Which brings us to Hanuman's next power, the Vastiva, which is having mastery over all creatures, or also known as power of control, where Vastiva actually refers to domination of one's will. It is the extraordinary power by which one dominates over human beings and subhuman beings. Luffy has shown this power where he subjugated humans and non-humans alike. With this power, Luffy was even able to control the famous giant sea creature Kraken, who he named Surume, making it his pet. Next we have Istiva, a power that grants Hanuman the aspect of godliness, where he has supremacy over nature, allowing him to create and destroy. Luffy, after awakening his devil fruit, obtained this power with his Gear 5. By sharing the rubber properties of his devil fruit to his surroundings, Luffy is able to mold anything and everything to his liking. The only thing he is limited by is his imagination. We even believe that using this power, Luffy should be able to bend the red line. And Joy Boy, who once had the power, was able to create Laugh Tale in a unique way. Of course, this is just a theory, but come on. Ballsy prediction magic, it never fails. Then we have Prapti. With it, Hanuman was able to travel anywhere and achieve anything at will. Now, this is more akin to Kuma's teleportation ability, and it's probably the only ability Luffy can't literally achieve. However, Luffy will in fact be able to travel anywhere and also will achieve what he wills. Thematically, Prapti is the definition of Luffy's dream, which is to be free. Luffy in his journey is trying to travel with no boundaries all around the world. Later, he will achieve Kama Amasitva, which means complete satisfaction. Luffy's haki is directly related to his self-belief and satisfaction of who he is and where he is going. But again, if we did have to predict Luffy's future powers, if he can't teleport, he might still be able to give off an effect similar to it, with the power of his awakening by stretching out space itself. This would also help him slow down time. Okay. Come on, it makes sense, alright? Let me explain this to you guys. If Luffy is able to rubberize lightning, as we saw in chapter 1047, and even air and other objects, the possibility of him sharing his devil fruit powers to space is there. Meaning, if space could be stretched, Luffy will be able to pull things closer to himself and push things away from him, giving the appearance of teleportation. This could also cause time dilation, where stretching out the space-time fabric, light will travel slower or faster if space is compressed. So yeah, Luffy potentially can teleport and in effect slow down time. These are just a few of Hanuman's abilities, but we could even go one further, where we can compare Hanuman's immunity from all sorts of weapons and attacks to Luffy's own immunity to blunt force. There, even the comparison of Hanuman's extreme speeds with Luffy exhibits with his Gear 2nd. Most importantly, Hanuman was blessed with effulgence, meaning shining brightly and exerting extreme joy, which is pretty much Luffy's entire character. Shining brightly to bring in many allies, as stated by Mihawk and Hyogoro, he has the power to bring others to his side. Of course, the natural joy Luffy has relates to this. Another blessing was wisdom, which we talked about in this video on screen. Everyone called us crazy, but it's been linked back to Luffy being a wisdom king once again. Hanuman is even blessed to have no fear of death, and we saw this with Luffy recently, as Kaido said that he would die, and Luffy exclaims, "Why do you think that would bother me? He doesn't care about death." We all know how shonen works, right? Every arc, the protagonist must progress in power to defeat the next enemy. In One Piece, it's the same, where Luffy during his final fight needs to pull out some broken hack's ability to face off against Blackbeard, who not only has the strongest Logia in the Yami Yami no Mi, which literally disables all devil fruit abilities, but also the strongest Paramecia in the Guro Guro no Mi, which can literally end the whole world. Even besides Luffy, the story of One Piece has so many similarities to the epic tales from the Ramayana. I'm sure we can find more clues to the ending of One Piece if we look a little bit deeper. For example, just look at how Hanuman goes to Lanka and saves Sita, right? It's kind of like how Luffy goes into an arc and there's a princess or a damsel in distress he must protect from the big baddie. Come on, it makes sense, right? But anyways, if you like this, then click the video that's shown on screen right now, because that's another banger.